Welcome to our deep dive into the world of AI and healthcare. Today, we're going to be tackling a question that I think is on a lot of people's minds. Why is it taking so long for all of these amazing AI tools to actually reach patients? We've got a,
Uh,
we've got a whole bunch of research articles, expert opinions. So let's just jump right in.
yeah, it's so fascinating to me because there's this big gap between what AI could do in healthcare and what it's actually doing right now.
Okay, so let's break down that gap a little bit. What are some of the biggest obstacles to actually implementing AI in healthcare? I mean, we hear all the time, AI is diagnosing this or predicting that. How come I haven't seen it at my doctor's office?
Well, one of the core issues really lies in the very nature of machine learning itself. You see, machine learning thrives on patterns, right?
Mm,
But the real world, especially in healthcare, is constantly shifting. Take data set shift, for instance.
data set shift. Okay, I need a little help with that one. What exactly does that mean?
So imagine an AI system is trained to diagnose a specific disease using data from 5 years ago. The problem is, patient demographics change, new treatments emerge, even diagnostic criteria evolve over time. So that AI model trained on that older data might not be as accurate or reliable when applied to today's patients.
So it's kind of like studying for a test using last year's exam, only to find out the professor changed all the questions. But in this case, the test is a patient's health, and the stakes are a lot higher.
Exactly, and that's just one piece of the puzzle. Another challenge is something called confounders. Think about the AI that learned to identify wolves in pictures. But it turns out it was actually just recognizing the presence of snow in the background, not the defining features of a wolf itself.
Wait, so the AI was completely missing the point. How does that apply to healthcare? That seems a bit unnerving.
Well, imagine an AI system designed to analyze skin lesions from images. It might learn to associate a ruler in the image with malignancy, simply because rulers are often used to measure cancerous lesions. But the ruler itself is not a sign of cancer.
So the AI might end up flagging benign lesions as potentially cancerous just because of a ruler. That's a pretty significant error. Are there ways to prevent that sort of thing from happening?
Absolutely. Data scientists are constantly working on techniques to mitigate these issues. For example, data augmentation involves creating variations of the training data to help the AI learn more robustly. Another approach is careful feature selection, where experts work to ensure the AI is focusing on the truly relevant features, not those misleading confounders.
So it's like teaching the AI to look beyond the superficial and understand the deeper meaning behind the data. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly, and this highlights a key point. AI in healthcare isn't just about letting algorithms loose on data. It requires a lot of human expertise and careful design.
I'm starting to understand just how complex this is. We've got dataset shift confounders, and I imagine there are even more challenges like this.
You're right. Another major challenge is generalization, which is the AI's ability to perform well on data that's different from what it was trained on. Let's say an AI system is developed using data from a large urban hospital. But will it be as accurate when used in a rural clinic with a different patient population and different equipment?
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. You can't just assume an AI system that works in one setting will automatically work in another. What are the implications of that?
It means that developing truly robust and reliable AI systems for healthcare requires extensive testing and validation across diverse populations and settings. We can't just assume that high accuracy on one data set guarantees success in real-world clinical practice.
That's a good point. It seems like there's a lot of work to be done to ensure that these AI systems are actually useful and effective for all patients, not just a select few. Are there any other challenges inherent to AI itself that we should be aware of?
Yeah, there is another major hurdle, the black box problem. Many AI systems, particularly deep learning models, are incredibly complex. And while they might be very accurate, it's often difficult to understand why they make a particular decision.
So it's like the AI is saying, trust me, I'm right, but it can't explain its reasoning. That seems problematic, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as healthcare.
You hit the nail on the head. Doctors, quite rightly, are hesitant to base their decisions on an AI system that they don't fully understand.
So how do we address that? Is there a way to make these AI systems more transparent?
That's one of the most exciting areas of research right now. Explainable AI. Scientists are developing techniques to help us peer inside those black boxes and understand the logic behind the AI's decisions. This is crucial not just for building trust, but also for identifying potential biases or errors in the AI's reasoning.
It sounds like we're just beginning to scratch the surface of what AI can do in healthcare. But there are some pretty significant challenges to overcome. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it interacts with the messy, complex world of human health.
That's precisely it. And we haven't even touched on the logistical and human factors yet, but we'll dive into those in our next segment.
Okay, so we've unpacked some of those core challenges with AI itself, data set shift confounders, the black box problem. It sounds like building a truly reliable AI for healthcare is a lot trickier than just, feeding it a bunch of data.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And all of those challenges are just compounded when you start to consider the logistical hurdles of actually implementing AI in real-world healthcare settings. For example, we've talked about the importance of training AI on diverse data sets, but the reality is that healthcare data is often fragmented and siloed.
Yeah, I've heard about that. It's like every hospital and clinic has its own little data kingdom,
Yeah.
and getting them to share information is like a royal pain. How does that impact AI development?
Well, it makes it incredibly difficult to gather those large, diverse data sets that are needed to train those truly robust AI models. A model that's trained on data from a single hospital might not generalize well to other settings. And even if you can access data from multiple sources, integrating and standardizing, it can be a real nightmare.
So it's not just about the quantity of data, it's also the quality and accessibility. It sounds like data fragmentation is a major roadblock to AI progress in healthcare. What are some other logistical challenges we need to think about?
Well, let's talk about evaluation. It's one thing to develop an AI system that performs well in a research setting, but how do we know that it will actually improve patient outcomes in the real world?
Right. It's not just about the fancy algorithms, it's about whether those algorithms actually translate into tangible benefits for patients. How do we measure that?
Well, the gold standard is the randomized controlled trial, or RCT. It's the most rigorous way to really assess the effectiveness of any medical intervention, including AI.
I've heard of RCTs. They're like the ultimate test for, a new drug or treatment. But aren't they incredibly expensive and time-consuming, especially when you're dealing with these complex AI systems?
They can be, and that's a real challenge. We need to find ways to streamline the process of conducting RCTs for AI in healthcare,
Hmm.
perhaps by leveraging existing data infrastructure or exploring innovative trial designs. But it's not just about the type of study. It's also about the metrics that we use to evaluate AI systems.
Metrics. So what kind of yardsticks are we using to measure the success of these AI tools?
Well, traditionally, AI researchers have focused on metrics like accuracy, sensitivity, and specificity. These are important, but they don't always tell the whole story in a clinical context. We need to use metrics that are meaningful to clinicians and that directly relate to patient outcomes.
So instead of just saying, this AI is 90% accurate at identifying X, we need to know if it actually leads to earlier diagnosis, better treatment decisions, or, improved quality of life for patients.
Exactly. And that requires really close collaboration between data scientists, clinicians, and patients themselves. We need to make sure that the metrics we're using to evaluate AI align with what matters most in healthcare.
It's all about bridging that gap between the technical world of AI and the human-centered world of medicine. I'm sensing a theme here.
There is a definite theme. And it becomes even more apparent when we start talking about implementation. Let's say you have an AI system that's been rigorously tested and proven effective. How do you actually integrate it into a busy hospital or clinic?
It's a great question. I imagine it's not as simple as just plugging in, a new piece of software.
It's definitely not plug and play.
Right.
You have to consider existing workflows, electronic health record systems, data privacy and security protocols, and perhaps most importantly, you have to think about the people who will be using this technology, the doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals.
It's that human factor again, right? How do we ensure that AI is seen as a helpful tool rather than, a threat?
That's a crucial consideration. We need to involve clinicians in every step of the process, from design to implementation. We need to provide adequate training and support to help them understand how to use AI effectively and how to interpret its results. And we need to address any concerns they might have about job security or the potential for AI to kind of dehumanize healthcare.
It sounds like rolling out AI in a hospital is almost as complex as performing a surgery. There's so many moving parts and potential complications.
That's a great analogy. It really does require a multidisciplinary team, careful planning, and ongoing monitoring to ensure a successful outcome.
We've talked a lot about those logistical hurdles, but I have a feeling there's more to unpack here, right? What about the costs involved in all of this?
Yeah, that's another key consideration. Developing, validating, implementing, and maintaining AI systems is expensive. And hospitals and healthcare systems are already operating on tight budgets. They need to carefully weigh the potential benefits of AI against those financial costs.
So it's a balancing act between innovation and affordability. Are there any other financial considerations when it comes to AI in healthcare?
We also need to think about reimbursement. If an AI system helps doctors make better diagnoses or treatment decisions, will insurance companies cover those services?
That's a great point. If the financial incentives aren't aligned, it could be really difficult to get AI widely adopted, even if it's demonstrably beneficial.
You're absolutely right. We need to have those conversations with payers and policymakers to ensure that the reimbursement landscape supports the responsible use of AI in healthcare.
So we've got data fragmentation, rigorous evaluation, costly implementation reimbursement challenges. Are there any other hurdles we haven't covered yet?
Well, there's one more big one. It might be the most complex of all, regulation.
Regulation. I can see how that could get tricky. After all, we're talking about AI making decisions that could impact people's health and even their lives.
Exactly. As AI becomes more prevalent in healthcare, we need clear guidelines and regulations to ensure safety, efficacy, and ethical use. But it's a rapidly evolving field, so those regulations need to be flexible enough to keep pace with innovation, while also providing strong safeguards for patients.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? We want to encourage progress, but not at the expense of patient safety or ethical considerations.
Precisely. And those regulations need to address those unique challenges we talked about earlier, like dataset shift and the black box problem. How do we ensure that AI systems are reliable and transparent and don't perpetuate existing biases in healthcare? These are questions that researchers, policymakers, and society as a whole are grappling with right now.
It seems like we're at a pivotal moment. We have this incredibly powerful technology with the potential to revolutionize healthcare, but we're still figuring out how to use it responsibly and effectively.
You've summed it up perfectly.
Mhm.
And this is where it gets really interesting because it's not just up to the experts to figure this out. It's a conversation that needs to involve all of us.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How can everyday people contribute to shaping the future of AI in healthcare? We'll delve into that in our final segment. All right, so we've covered, a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the inherent challenges of AI itself to the logistical hurdles and even the regulatory landscape. It's clear that integrating AI into healthcare is a complex endeavor. But, now I'm curious, what does this all mean for me, the patient?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Ultimately, the goal of AI in healthcare is to improve patient outcomes and enhance the overall healthcare experience.
Okay, so paint me a picture. What could that actually look like in my day-to-day life?
Well, imagine a world where you have an AI-powered app on your phone that helps you manage a chronic condition like diabetes. It could analyze your blood sugar readings, your activity levels, and even your diet to provide personalized recommendations and even early warnings.
So it's like having a personal health coach right on my phone, helping me stay on top of things and make, informed decisions about my health. What else?
Well, think about preventive care. AI could analyze your genetic data, lifestyle choices, family history to identify potential health risks before they even develop. This could lead to earlier interventions, personalized screening recommendations, and ultimately better long-term health outcomes.
That's incredible. It sounds like AI could play a crucial role in empowering patients to take control of their own health. But I also wonder about the other side of the coin. How could AI impact the doctor-patient relationship?
That's a really important question. The goal of AI is not to replace doctors, but to augment their capabilities and free up their time to focus on what matters most. Building relationships with patients, providing compassionate care, and making those complex human-centered decisions that require empathy and understanding.
So AI could be like a tireless assistant, handling those data-heavy tasks, like analyzing medical images or sifting through electronic health records, so doctors can spend more time listening to patients and addressing their, individual needs.
Exactly. Imagine a doctor who has access to all of your relevant medical information, instantly summarized and analyzed by an AI system. They can walk into the exam room fully prepared, ready to engage with you on a deeper level and tailor their recommendations to your specific situation.
It sounds like a win-win for both patients and doctors. But I also remember those risks we discussed earlier, things like bias and the black box problem. How do we ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly in healthcare?
Well, that's where ongoing research, robust regulation, and open dialogue come in. We need to make sure that AI systems are designed with fairness, transparency, and accountability in mind. We need to have clear guidelines for data privacy and security, and we need to involve patients in the conversation, ensuring that their voices are heard and their values are respected.
It sounds like navigating the future of AI in healthcare really requires a collaborative effort from researchers, policymakers, healthcare providers, and patients alike.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in shaping this technology and ensuring that it's used for the benefit of all.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into AI in healthcare, what's the key takeaway for our listener?
I think the key takeaway is that AI has the potential to revolutionize healthcare in some really profound ways, from personalized treatments to preventive care and enhanced doctor-patient relationships. But it's crucial to remember that AI is a tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or for ill. The choices we make today, the conversations we have, and the actions we take will determine the future of AI in healthcare and its impact on our lives.
That's a powerful message. It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we choose to use it and the values we embed in its development and deployment. So, to our listeners out there, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged in this critical conversation. The future of healthcare is being written right now, and your voice matters. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI in healthcare. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.